Okay, this is drawing lesson number 2. Last week we talked about contour drawings and delineating the shape with blind, we did blind contour drawings, but we talked mostly about contour meaning the shape of things. So as you probably did for your assignment during the week, which was to do 3 5-minute drawings a day of anything. And I have since come to find an article, which I will email you in the follow-up email to this class. I think it's 101 drawing ideas, and it's a PDF. It's, I think, maybe 20 pages if you printed it out, but it's got so many ideas for drawing that, because you might look around and say, oh, what am I going to draw today? So this is a great idea. Now, some of you probably you're using a pencil, but like I did last week, I said, I'm going to use markers and I'm going to work big so you can see what I'm doing. So let's say that one of the things, let me see if I can move this closer. Oh, it might be easier to just move the iMac closer. Yeah, okay. Let's just say that one of the things I chose to draw last week was a pear. And what you may have done with your drawing is lightly sketch out the shape. And a pear is just, remember I told you about big shapes? A pear is just a circle with a triangle on it. And I'm just going to put the triangle off to the side like the pear was on a tilt. See, I got that just a little lightly, because now I'm going to go over it darker and show you what happens when we do the contour. And the contour being, this is an acrylic paint marker. I don't know if I want to use that. Let me just use a big Sharpie, the Magnum. This is a huge Sharpie. The pear is just, a circle with a triangle shape on it. And you might round it off, because it's not quite that geometric, and it's got like these organic kind of bumps to it. It might have a little come out like that, a little more, or maybe like that. But we've got this shape, whether it's a flower pot, a coffee mug, a pear, an apple, whatever you chose to work on your contour drawing. Just going to put like a little stem on. But it's floating in space. So what I want to talk about tonight is how to secure our object in space and how to give it a sense of 3 dimensions with shadow and creating shading and different varieties of different ways how we create shading. Now, the easiest way to ground your object in space is to just give it a parallel line behind it. Just like that on each side of it. Now it looks like it's sitting on a tabletop. It's grounded in space. And you can even, your line doesn't have to be parallel. It could be off on a slant, on a diagonal, as if you were looking at this tabletop from like a 3/4 view. But this is a dead-on view where my tabletop is parallel. I'm trying to keep it simple here. Now, a way of creating shading is we have to determine our light source. So without getting too terribly scientific, when I've been an artist my whole life, And when I was much younger, I thought of so much of art as being, intuitive and free spirit and all that. There is so much science behind art. When you come to study light and color, there's so much more science involved than I originally thought when I was a younger artist. So that being said, I want to talk a little bit about light. So if we decide we have to decide where the light is coming from. So I like when I'm drawing or painting, sometimes I'll put it on a little post-it note, but I'll just qualify where I want the light to come from. And right now I'm having it come from this upper corner and it's going to come this way. Light is very simple. It travels in a straight line. So when it goes across an object, the shadow is going to be on this side. And the shadow, and what I want to do now is put up a split screen because, or share screen. Let me see it. I want to do this right. Okay, I think this one is the one I want to show you right now. Now, anything I put up on the shared screen tonight is in a real live class, it would be like a handout. And this will be an attachment to tomorrow's email. So you could even, download it for your online files or print it out if you're like a hard copy kind of person. So this is screen sharing. I want that particular one. Okay, this one. Okay, so you're seeing the light source with this ball. And the light source is creating different words that as an artist, I want you to know and become familiar with. Our light source is where the light is coming from, as listed in blue type on the upper left-hand corner of that image. Before, I mentioned how the parallel lines establish a plane. And when your object is sitting on a plane, it qualifies it in space. What we're now doing is establishing the light source, and which will help us gain dimension. So where the shadow is, the light is going to cast the shadow. So a cast shadow is going to be on this side of the object, and the shadow is never wider than the object itself. So my shadow isn't going to go all the way over here because the light is coming this way. The shadow is going to be darkest right where it sits and hits the surface on which it falls. And then my shadow is going to emulate the shape coming out this way. Now, there's different ways that we can create this cast shadow. And I'll be getting into cross-hatching and hatching in just a minute, because I also want to talk about the object shadow, which is the shadow on the dark side of your object, like the dark side of the moon. So this area of our pair that is not getting hit by light is what we call the object shadow. And the shadow image that's being cast upon our plane is called the cast shadow. So how do we, I'm going to stop sharing now, and you're going to get all of this as attachments. How do we qualify creating shading? And the shading helps define the three-dimensionality of our object. How we can do that is if we were using a charcoal pencil or charcoal sticks, which I may have mentioned, I'm not crazy about the charcoal sticks because not only are they super messy, it's not good to inhale that dust. So when I'm using soft pastels, chalk and charcoal, I wear a mask. So there are different ways to create shading. And If you don't have paint and you just want to do it with line, there's different lines that we use. And again, I'm going to do a shared screen. And I'm going to show you a drawing by Rembrandt, where all of his shading is done with line. There's no paint, as you can see. Can you all see like the image of the young man in the shared screen? It's all done with line. There's no wash, there's no paint. The cross hatching and the hair, especially the textural swirls and whirls of the hair. But the other areas, he's using hatching and cross hatching. So hatching is when you're drawing parallel lines, and this is the wrong marker. I don't want that marker. This is the one. When you're drawing parallel lines, and the closer they are together, the darker your image will be. The further apart your lines are, it conveys like a more light area. So when we do cross hatching, that's we're just doing lines that are perpendicular to each other. And where it's darker, your lines are going to be more densely woven and darker and thicker than the lines on the lighter area of your object, where they're going to be not as close together. Now, another thing to keep in mind when you're doing cross hatching is you also, let me flip this and do this on a fresh sheet to show you what I mean. Let's go back to our pear. I'm just going to draw, like a pear. Well, it looks more like a gourd, but in any event, there's my pear. When we're doing a spherical object, and let me get Rembrandt off of here because I want to put up the next image to show you. You want to follow the contour of the object to give you a sense of volume or a sense of shape. And as we mentioned last week, all of these things we choose to draw are either spheres or squares or rectangles or triangles. If we break down our site into simple shapes, we can get, if we want a circle to show dimension, then we want our lines to follow the object. And let me show you what I mean by putting up another crosshatch. This is the one I want. Another one to show you. Where'd you go? This guy. Okay, so this is using an apple. So they're suggesting that your lines follow, instead of going parallel this way and that way, that our lines will now follow. They'll be curved like the object. And then as the object goes over that way, our lines will follow the curvature of the object. So you get a sense of volume. Oh, I forgot to put my shadow in, but I'm going to get to that in a minute. So where I want my drawing to be darker, I'm going to put my hatching and my lines closer together. And I'm doing this very loose and very big to show you that I'm following the roundness of the object. And where the object is going to be darker is where it hits the table. Oh, and I want to go back to my shadow, which I'm going to get to, because that is a different little thing I want to show you. That wasn't the one. Was it this one? No, was it this one? I think that's it. Oh, okay. Yes, the guide to mark making. So you've got your, where it says flat, it's showing you how those lines don't really define in the middle section where it says better. That's where your curved lines are showing you, giving you a sense of dimension for the object. So you're going to have your curved lines there. Now, when we get down to the shadow, where it's pointing to the shadow area, oh, and this is the one where you should have that in front of you. The shadow, because it's on a flat surface, I might try and use a pencil to try and get the basic shape of my shadow with the pencil. But my shadow is flat. It's on the table. The shadow doesn't have 3 dimensions like the pear does. So our shadow hatching is going to be parallel lines, because that's not rounded. And my lines are going to get further apart the further I get away from my object. So they're going to be darker where it hits the table. And I'm just making parallel lines. And then I might have some come this way to really show you. And I'm working really big here. You might be working small, you know, like on a 5x7, and you're using a pencil. But this is to give you the idea of creating your shadow and your shadow. Now, one thing I also want to show you is that when you're drawing a shadow, you're really not going to be tracing it like that. When you look at a shadow, you're not seeing a hard circle around it. So you want to avoid doing something like that with a strong pencil mark. Which also leads me to, when you're doing cross hatching, or, you know, cross hatching is crossing lines, hatching is just, you know, all in the same kind of direction, or parallel lines. The thickness, the pressure you put on your pencil and the thickness of your pencil also determine the darkness. So as you want to show a shadow where it's really dark, where it touches the table, you're going to be pressing down more firmly on your pencil, and your lines are going to be closer together. Where you're letting up and and it's hard for me to do this, maybe if I got some gray markers, you're going to let up on the pencil in terms of pressure when you want to work into a lighter area. Because so many of the times when we think of shading, we think of taking like the side of the pencil or the flatness, and we're going to be rubbing it, which is also a form of hatching. You're not picking up your pencil when you're shading it with the flat of the pencil like this. They're more like, you know, a continuous zigzag next to each other. But as you let up on the pencil, you'll create darker areas or lighter areas. If you start pressing harder, broke that one. When you start pressing harder, you'll create your darker lines. The drama in drawings comes from the chiaroscuro, which is an Italian word for dark and light. Caravaggio was famous for that. You've got your whitest whites right next to your darkest darks. And it's all about value. And when I talk about value, I'm talking about a grayscale. And one of the things that we're going to be doing this next week is I'm going to be attaching tonight your post-class email, a couple of worksheets. And one of them is this value scale of how you create your lighter lights and your darkest darks with pencil shading, like I did. Oh, let me find a new pencil here that I didn't break. This is a nice soft one. This is an Eberhard Faber ebony. So this makes a nice shading pencil where you can come in and give it on its side, and it makes a nice velvety mark. So shading is where you're taking the flat of your pencil and you're drawing it this way. Blending is you can get a blending stump. And I don't want to get too much into gadgets with you, but there's a Derwent blending pen. Derwent blending pen. Where's the Derwent thing? Okay, it's on there somewhere. There it is. And I don't know if it has, it's like a white felt tip with clear, I don't know if it's a gel or what, but supposedly, yeah, that is going to blend your pencil marks in. So that is column number 2. The third column is hatching, where I showed you is parallel lines, then cross hatching, which are crisscross lines, and stippling. The next item I want to talk about on how to shade your object is called stippling. And that is, it's almost, I don't know what it sounds like the action. Stippling is creating dots and marks. And the closer you make them together, the darker your object will be. The more you thin them out would be in the lighter areas. And when you want to show a darker area, you make your stippling dots closer together. It's kind of like pointillism. Around where the nipple is, where the the stem comes out, it might be a little darker up there. It's easy for me to stipple with a really heavy magic marker, but you get the idea of stippling. Where you want it to be darker, your pencil strikes will be closer together. So that is stippling, and you can see that whole row. Now, it starts with boxes of light, very light, light, medium, dark, and the darkest. So what I'm going to be emailing you is this fun little worksheet that you can work on during the week. And I still encourage you to do your 3 5-minute drawings a day, which I'll return to in a minute. So you're going to be getting this worksheet printed out, and you're going to start your grayscale from the very lightest, and here's your guide at the top, and you're going to practice doing shading that emulates the degree of grayness at the top of the page, and do it in shading, hatching, cross hatching, and stippling. This even though this is homework and this is a homework sheet, you don't have to hand it in. You can do it as many times as you like. This is good practice for you to get the eye, hand, brain to think about how much pressure do I need to do? How close do my pencil lines have to be to get that degree of grayness? So it's a good exercise. It's fun. It's easy. So that's what you'll be getting as your homework assignment attachment in the follow-up emails. You're probably going to get a lot of attachments from me. And like I said, you can print them out, you can file them, you can do with them what they will. One of the things, a little trick, a little hack I want to share with you before I open it up to questions is sometimes you may have noticed that you're drawing something, and unlike an organic shape where your pear could be not symmetrical, if you're drawing something that, let me stop the screen share because I'm going to put another one up there. If you're drawing something that's symmetrical, I want to share with you a little hack that will help you improve your proportions. So, not that screen, not that one. Come on now, this one. Yeah. So this is a picture of a vase. And sometimes when we're drawing, we might not be able to get both sides looking symmetrical, which can be a source of frustration. But don't worry, there's lots of hacks that you can do as an artist that will help you achieve the results that you want. So let me grab a little piece of tape here, because I'm going to put something up here to show you. This is just, like a little vase, like this. A little vase drawing. And I should probably just draw it. Why don't I just do that? Let's say that I have a fishbowl or something like that. And I want both sides to look a little different. So I've got this fishbowl and, it's got something here, and one side it goes this way and one side goes that way. And I don't like the fact that they're not symmetrical. What you can do is take the side that you like and focus on that. If you have a piece of tracing paper, and because I'm working big, you want any kind of paper that is translucent, that you can see through. Wax paper might work, but it could transfer waxiness to your paper surface, which might be act as a resist and might not accept the pencil. But what I want to do is show you an easy hack to get your proportions down. You want to just basically eyeball the middle of your symmetrical object. And I'm just kind of drawing, and you would do a thin pencil line, maybe even hatch marks at the top and bottom that you would erase later. You want to pick the side that you like. This is the side that I think is more representative of a fishbowl. This thing kind of, there's like a wonky thing down here that I don't like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold my paper in half, and I'm going to put my fold mark where the middle is. And I'll do it this way, just to keep it going. I'll just tape it there, because now what I want to do is take that shape that I like, and I'm going to trace it. That's why you need paper that you can see through. A piece of, tissue or parchment or vellum. And I'm going to trace the line that I like and that I want the other side to look like. So I'm going to trace that side, pick up my tracing paper, flip it over, match up my middle lines where my fold is, and my middle line. And now I can see my proportion and where I need to go with this. This line over here, I'm going to pretend I'm erasing, but I can't erase magic marker, and I'm not going to get out white paint right now. But now it's giving me a guide. And the good thing about pencil is if you have tracing paper, you can go over the opposite side and go over it with pencil to release carbon on there. You could even do it with like tracing paper. And then when you press on that, the carbon will be released to the other side. So my piece would come around this way, and now it's more symmetrical. I wish I could erase to show you my point, but I did it on here where you can see you're going to have lots of sketchy lines, but in order to get it, this was where it was up here, and I didn't want that. I wanted the symmetry, and I folded it in half, and I did the other side, and I would then I would go ahead and erase those erroneous lines. But if you're drawing an organic shape, an apple, a melon, or something like that, don't worry about the symmetry. It's with man-made items that we get hung up with the symmetry, manufactured items like vases and jugs and things like that. So let me stop sharing on that. Okay. Let me check all my notes. Okay, so I think I covered everything I wanted to cover tonight. What I'd like to do is, if you have any questions, I will unmute you, just like raise your hand and I'll unmute you. And okay, let me go back. Okay, so Lee asked to unmute. Okay, you had a question.
Yes, so I don't know if you're going to be getting into this more, later in other lessons or not, but, and if you are, okay, but if not, I don't know if I'm completely seeing or understanding where the object shadow would be. I understand that it's in the darkest, the part that's not hitting the light, but I'm not sure I would be able to pick it out, like if you gave us a worksheet on that or something.
I will give you a worksheet, but let me just quickly review it with a drawing and I'll go over it again. Okay.
Okay, thank you. And I had a second part to that also, the question.
Okay, great. All right, let me go over this again. All right. So on our object, let's say this time I have, like I don't know, what is this? Maybe this is an apple or a tomato or whatever. If my light is coming from this direction, my object shadow is, let me put it up on the screen again so I have that example, even though I think the light is opposite coming from the left and this is coming from the right. Okay, if the light's coming this way, light travels in a straight line. And this organic shape, this tomato, is in the way of the light. So it's going to cast a shadow that's going this way. And it is going to emulate the shape of the object. And this shadow will change depending on the light. Now, if the light was coming at a severe angle, like late day, it would cast a long shadow going that way. If it was noon and the light was coming from straight above, your object, your cast shadow rather, if your light is coming straight above, your cast shadow would be right underneath the object. So your cast shadow would, and it's never wider or bigger than the object. It's the same size. Now, the object shadow is where the light is not hitting it, but it's still part of the object. So the object shadow, if it's directly overhead, would be like the bottom of this, whatever this is that cherry here. I think it's easier for me when the light, to describe it when the light is coming from a side, because your object shadow is like the dark side of the moon. We've got our cast shadow, but the object shadow is the brightest part of your object is going to be up here where the light is hitting. That's where we would put our highlights. And sometimes you might see in drawings where they suggest a highlight. It almost looks like a window or a little, let me grab some gray markers so I can get a sense of tone. Okay, here we go. This is a brush. So our object shadow is the darker side of this object. And the brightest part of our object, and I'm just going to leave this absolutely white here to kind of suggest a highlight. And where there might be a crease, or it might be darker here in the stem. We got a stem. And this is the object shadow down here, the darker part of our object. And the lighter part of our object is where the light is being thrown on it. So I have, I'll be sending you the, oh, and here's our, you got to ground it in space with our little horizontal lines out to the side. I'll be sending you handouts that further describe this. Now I could spend like the next hour perfecting my shading, trying to emulate the object more and where it might be darker, where the stem is coming in. And if it has like a little, if you know how like a plum might have, or a pumpkin has those seams, those ridges that go in and out, then that would be described with little darker lines there where there's like a ridge on a plum or a pumpkin. So fool around with the lines. Go back and forth and back and forth. and do more of your 5-minute drawings, 3 5-minute drawings a day. Now, if you're going to incorporate shading, you might want to give yourself more time, give yourself like 10 minutes. Because I have this, I'm using markers, this is getting really, really dark. And where it's darkest is where the object meets the plane on which it rests. So just to give you a little indication, let me put this here, of what your sketchbook could look like. I shared with you last week that I've been working on my left-hand drawings and my right-hand drawings. So I just went outside today and I picked whatever daffodils were out and I held them out, and I had my sketchbook on a flat surface. And with, I did a 5-minute drawing with my left hand and a 5-minute drawing with my right hand. And I put the date, I put how many minutes and what hand. And I have to tell you, even though my right hand writing is better than my left hand writing, I actually like my left hand drawings more than my right hand drawings. I don't know why, but I do. So some of you have asked me about drawing surfaces. Now, I don't normally draw on an easel. I usually draw standing up, and my sketchbook is on the table surface, and I like to have my arm long, and I like to hold my pencil further back in my hand. If you hold your pencil all tight and close to the point, you're going to mess up your shoulder and your elbow. Stay loose. Start off by doing some arm circles even before you start drawing. And then, I don't know if you can see in these drawings where I didn't start right off going for that daffodil shape. I established, let me do it on the big shapes so you get an idea. I established first my major, how much space this is going to take up on the page. And sometimes this is a problem with me. I start really big and then my object starts going off the page. But basically what I did, and I'll do it in marker to show you,
Can you
is
make yourself bigger and turn the picture off of that apple off?
oh yeah, thank you. Wait, I'm gonna go back to stop share. Where did that go? Okay, is that better? Okay. Okay. What I was saying was, let's see, let's get this up here. I started off just deciding what kind of goes where. Like, I've got like something big in the front, and then behind it is this, and then I've got this profile kind of thing, flower over here. So I just started off kind of like defining where my basic shapes were. And then looking at it and say, okay, it's got like this middle here, and it's got like these, it's almost like a star, and very loose. And then, of course, I had the clock going, I had my timer on. So I wanted to stay loose. And you see, I'm holding my marker all the way back at the end, trying to stay loose and just kind of defining the shapes. And then when I start getting more confident that I like how my shapes are shaping up, then I'll go back in and I'll commit with a bolder stroke, with maybe, like a dark stroke. and saying, okay, well, I got, this kind of leaf going here, and then, this one goes down this way. And now I'm committing, now that I've established where my shapes would go, see here, and I'm getting all the way to the edge again. I always do that. I draw big. See, and then I started committing to my shapes. So don't start off your drawings with a tiny little area of detail. Start big and then hone in. Once you're confident that you like the way this shape is going, then make a more committed stroke. Then you can go back in and show more definition. So I would recommend that as your drawing practice. Give yourself a little bit more time if you're going to be incorporating shading into your drawings this week. Do not time yourself when it comes to the worksheets I'll be sending you. Again, you will get out of the class what you put into it. I'm not forcing you to do these worksheets. You don't have to turn any homework in or qualify anything that I ask you to do. But I think if you do the exercises and you have any questions, please feel free. You can watch the videos, and I'll attach more PDFs to various things, aids, drawing aids that will help you. And we'll continue our journey next week. Are there any more questions? Anything else you'd like me to cover that I haven't explained? Okay, well, I'll be sending you all these attachments. I know it seems like a lot, but it is a lot. There's only so much I can do in 1 hour. I personally, I can't Zoom for more than an hour. I don't know who can. I admire you if you can. So this is something where my Zoom classes are, I do an overview and then I barrage you with links into a deeper dive to investigate what we went over tonight. So thank you for your time. Feel free to contact me with any questions, and I look forward to working with you again next week. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Bye.